It's actually a really important story. Mohammad Darawshe, he's a political analyst and strategic director for a really important Givat Institute. Thanks so much for joining us, Mohammad.
Thank you, Givat Haviva Institute.
Haviva, sorry, forgive my pronunciation. Mohammad, I have to, first of all, I know that you lost a cousin in the Nova attack, and from all of us here, we offer our condolences.
Thank you very much.
Your cousin was a paramedic at the scene. Tell us a little bit about how do you want to honor him?
Well, actually, I want to honor him for the last 1 minute that he stayed there. He refused to be evacuated. He thought that he could still give some help for the first wounded people that he started treating at the station. He was placed at the supernova party. And when the first rockets started to fall, he started attending to the wounded. But soon bullets started coming closer, and there was an order to evacuate. The head of the team asked to evacuate. He refused. He said that he speaks Arabic, and because of that, he thinks he's going to manage. And he thought that his Arab identity would help him maybe negotiate some sense with the attackers. That didn't really go too well, and he died holding his bandages in his hands. Bandages that he would have used to maybe stop the bleeding of one of the wounded people in the party.
But Mohammed, this shows you the kind of brutality we're talking about here. This is, I mean, here's someone who was trying to help people, and they didn't care.
Well, unfortunately, this is the war. I mean, for us, we're not, we're not looking at the big picture. We're looking at the specific picture of Awad, and instead of describing the scene, we want to describe his actions. He died as a humane person. He died in the middle of brutality. He died as someone that was selfless in the middle of maybe selfish and maybe indifferent. His indifference was that he was indifferent to the identity of the people that he was treating. He was treating the casualties, the first casualties, with a lot of compassion, with a lot of care, with the responsibility of a human being that wanted to stay a human being to the last minute. And his Arab identity didn't really help him, despite the fact that he thought it could have helped him in this kind of attack.
Well, again, our condolences to you and your family. Mohammed, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Givat Haviva Institute here. It is a coexistence organization. It helps both sides try to get to common ground. Do you think that you have an extraordinary challenge now after October the 7th? I mean, how do you build trust again after all of this?
Well, first of all, trust is being built as we speak right now, because there's a lot of effort still working to try to keep calm among Jewish and Arab citizens in Israel. And thank God we're successful. I'm in talks almost every day with 20, 30 mayors and heads of schools and principals of schools and business people to contribute to keeping calm and prevent escalation. I'm also in talk with many people that might be able to influence the Jewish population. First of all, to make sure that the police does not cross the line, and the police, unfortunately, in many cases has crossed the line of making arrests that are not supposed to be arrests. People that might have expressed anger or frustration on social media, and suddenly they find themselves arrested. Something that is even closer to witch hunting and closer to McCarthyism in some cases. But still, we're able to get sentences, beautiful sentences that come from other leaders in the society, such as the president, who is calling to make sure to look at the Arab citizens as legitimate citizens that also have maybe different perspective on how they analyze the political scene, and they have a right to express themselves. And I think that if we're able to maintain the proper balance between the democratic nature of the state, even during the time of war, I think that will allow us to go through this kind of difficult situation. At Givat Haviva, we're also very busy now with making sure we prepare the right ground for the teachers. Like we have a major project. We have in Israel there are 2,500 cross-sector teachers. 2,000 Arab teachers teaching in Jewish schools and 500 Jewish teachers teaching in Arab schools. We're working with those teachers to make sure that none of them feels the pressure and need to leave. The same thing in the medical industry. A third of the medical industry in Israel are Arab citizens. 24% of the doctors. They need support. The same thing, maybe some of the staff of those hospitals. The bus drivers, 50% of the bus drivers are Arab citizens. 50% of the truck drivers, or even more. And this is the fabric of Jewish-Arab relations that is holding pretty well for more than 5.5 weeks already. And I think that it's important to try to maintain that and not allow this to break apart. I know some people are trying to break it apart. Unfortunately, one of them is the Minister of Internal Security, who seems, he's been successful in making a career out of bringing Jewish-Arab relations to this kind of friction and confrontations. And he's tried already a number of times. And one of my biggest fears, actually, is the indiscriminate distribution of weapons in the hands of Israeli Jews today, which is a policy of the Minister Ben-Gvir. And who's going to be in the other end of that weapon? It's going to be me and my children. This is not a weapon that is going to be targeted against Hamas, and it's not a weapon that is going to be targeted against Hezbollah. The closest to these weapons on the other end will be Arab citizens. And I'm scared for myself. I'm scared for my children. This is an atmosphere that is not healthy for Jewish-Arab relations.
Let's hope that doesn't happen. I have a question. I wanted to ask you two questions. First of all, I was struck by a poll over the weekend that said that 70% of Israeli Arabs support Israel in the fight against Hamas. I wondered what your opinion was on that. And then I also wanted to talk to you about what your perception is of all those demonstrations around the world. There were people kicking down doors of train stations in New York. There are violent protests in London over the weekend. How does that help the discussion?
Well, the 70%, the poll that shows that 70% of Arab citizens support Israel, I think is a little bit, maybe a little bit twisted. Much of it is probably pleasing responses, people that are trying to please the agency that is conducting the vote. We've seen this in tense times. People tend to please the polling agency. But it's not really too far. I mean, in the past, support for being in Israel and seeing ourselves as part of the state of Israel was closer to 68, 65%. And so it's there's a little bit of increase here that I'm not sure if I can attribute it to the war or not.
Okay, so let's talk about the larger picture around the world, the demonstrations, the violent demonstrations.
Well, first of all, I do not support violence to start with. I think that any demonstration, demonstrations are something legitimate that people should be allowed to conduct as long as they're respectful, as long as they do not dehumanize the other side. I think the dehumanization and the violent nature does not contribute to attract support for a cause. Yes, the Israelis have paid a very dear price. The Palestinians are paying a very dear price. And I think that the price is being paid mostly because of the failure of the political leadership in delivering an agreement. So I think that if anyone wants to demonstrate, they should demonstrate in support of peace between Israel and the Palestinians and not support a war from this side or support war from the other side. What we need right now on the Israeli-Palestinian front is more people to say, it's time to bring about peace. It's time to bring about a solution. Peace and solution that respects both Israel's needs and respects the Palestinian needs. And I think that anyone that sees only one side of the formula, he is part of the problem and he's not part of the solution.
Great.
If you want to be part of the solution, you need to contribute to that. And contribution to that is maybe it's time to demonstrate for peace and not just siding with one party or another.
Mohammad Darawshe, who is a political analyst and strategic director for the Givat Haviva Institute, thanks so much for joining us this morning.